All right, so what we're going to do in this quick session is we have with us a bunch of VMware certified design experts, VCDXs, and I'll introduce myself. I'm Chris Galati. I'm a principal architect with VMware. I'm also the VCDX evangelist. And what we wanted to do was, I think everybody on this panel is pretty close friends from way back at doing our VCDXs. What we want to do is try to help folks understand why the certification was important to us, why we actually went through it, some of the challenges we had, because we get a lot of questions from people that are thinking about doing it, and they are just afraid in a lot of cases. So we got a bunch of questions. I'm going to interview these guys, and we're going to go through, and we are videotaping it, so we'll post it next week or so on the VMware blogs and on VMware TV so folks can see it. So first of all, let's start, just go down the line, introduce yourselves, your VCDX number, name, company, rank, serial number.
Sure. So, hi guys, I'm Brad Maltz. My VCDX number is 36. 36.
Yeah, so Brad and I defended on the same weekend, and he finished like 5 seconds earlier than I did, so they had to get him the...
I bust on him all the time. I'm at EMC now. Actually, I've recently moved companies. I used to be at a partner in New England, but I'm Senior Director in charge of converged infrastructure at EMC right now.
Jason?
My name is Jason Nash, VCX number 49. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Vero, partner. I'm based out of the Southeast, if you can't tell by my accent yet. We also have a new office up here in Boston, so thank you for coming.
Mark Gabrielski, VCDX 23. I work for WorldCom Exchange in Salem, New Hampshire, as their virtualization practice manager. So, local guy.
Hey guys, Mike Berthian. I'm VCDX number 84. I actually work for Nutanix as a local solutions engineer, covering the Boston, Massachusetts, Rhode Island area. So, yeah, that's about it.
When did Nutanix hire a VCDX? I didn't know you guys had any on staff.
We have 11.
And
Let's not get into that one.
I'm Tim Antonowitz. I'm a solutions architect for Pernix Data. I cover the Northeast. I live in Maine, so I'm even more farther north than you guys. And yeah, I just number 112, and just hanging out doing whatever.
So what's interesting is you can tell just by the numbers. So the numbers actually are pretty unique because once you get your number stays with you. And even if you get a double VCDX, we'll talk about that. So we've got guys who've just taken it, some people in the middle, and then some of us. I actually sat on Jason's panel, so that was fun.
It's all your fault.
It's all my fault that Jason got his first one. So let's just quickly, we'll go randomly. I'll start with Mark. What made you decide to pursue the certification? And we'll give everybody a couple seconds to answer why you actually made the decision to go for it.
So absolutely. Well, I started IT 20 years ago, and I started by becoming an acronym collector from Bell and Microsoft and Cisco and pick your storage vendor. VMware, I got my DCP way back in the original days of it. Initially, it was just a challenge just to get the cert that everyone said was unattainable. And after starting to thinking back on that and looking back, those are still valid reasons that I really wanted to. But when I start looking for it now, and I recommended the program for other people, I really look for it as you're going to become validated by your peers for a level of excellence that is hard to find in the IT industry, because bringing together the technical skills and the business skills and being able to articulate not only in a presentation in a defense kind of scenario, but also document all your decisions and assignments. So initially it was an ego trip. It was a lot of fun to get a cert that no one else could get.
So a show of hands, how many of us did it because it was an ego trip? Initially, nobody had it, so we were.
No, let's be honest.
Brad and I were both working in the field at the time.
I remember helping everyone else out, and everyone has different reasons to get going with it. But really, when I'm now looking back at it, and everyone who's going through the program, I really enjoy helping them out, because if they're really striving for this, they really want to deliver an excellence amongst themselves and to their customers, and it'll happen.
So, Jason, what about you?
I didn't know better. I think that's one of the things from being a little early on. But honestly, I looked at a lot of certs, and I've looked at doing CCIEs and some of the other higher levels. And I think the thing for me was this was different. It wasn't just can you implement, can you configure, can you do this. It was much more involved. And at the time, I was a sales engineer doing design work for customers, and I thought it was a great fit for that, and it really was. And it was much more involved than most of the deployment certifications, technical certifications. And being at a partner, it was, and honestly, even a few years later, still is a good differentiator for a lot of people. And we still, I'm up here this week meeting with people based on a lot of work that came directly out of attaining VCX.
Brett?
So I think for me, there were two aspects to it. One, I think Mark said pretty well, is validation. Based on what I was doing, I think I was looking for a validation to show that I was actually doing it the best way possible, the right way, the most robust possible. But I think the other thing for me was really more of it was a challenge. And, not so much from an ego trip perspective, but I really wanted that challenge to say, you know what? I can do something, I can push myself further, harder, more. And the other thing, and maybe the third thing for me, is I kind of fell into it, which I hate to even say that, but back when I did it, they had the betas for the DCD and the DCA and all that, and I was like, oh, beta, let's do another beta, and I actually passed them, and I was like, okay, so I passed the betas, what's next? Oh, there's this VCDX thing. Okay, well, let's go try that, and it was kind of just, it was awesome to actually do it.
Yeah, we all joke about the ego thing, but I think everybody in this industry, we're always looking for the next challenge, right? We're always looking for the next problem to solve, and I think that's why I did it too, is nobody told me to do it. It was one of those things to just go try to push yourself to the next level. We'll talk about that in a second. But so for those folks who aren't familiar with the process, right? It's a pretty long process. There's some tests you have to complete. The most intense part of it is the defense piece, right? You actually sit in front of a panel of 3 VCDXs and you actually defend your design, you get questioned on it, and you have a conversation. So when we look back at the process, when all of us look back at the process, we'll make this a twofold question. We'll start with Tim. What was your biggest challenge with the process? What did you like the most about the process?
The biggest challenge I had for the whole process wasn't the DCA and DCB ticketing exams. That's relatively easy. Doing the defense and design, I had to change the way that I did the work, because I was designing on the fly a lot of times. And I'd go into a customer and say, oh, well, we have this environment, blah, blah, blah. Okay, you're going to need 5 hosts, you're going to need this for storage, you need this for network, and why? It's like, well, because I've done this 100 times and I know that's what you're going to need. But with the VCDX process, you actually have to figure out exactly what those metrics are and have validation for your reasons as to why you need this number of hosts and all this stuff. That was the hardest part for me to do, is actually get into a validation and say, prove why you need this much and what this is. So I had to actually do more busy work and actually go through the methodology, which I never did before. And now it made me a better architect to design things, because now I actually have proof behind that. Well, because I said so.
Yeah, I think we hear that a lot. We always talk about how it's about justification, and we all go through our lives, right? And just personal life and everything else. You just do things because it's muscle memory, or for whatever reason. Like it's automatic. And when you get into design scenarios, and we see people come through the defense, and you ask them why, it's simple questions, like a 2-year-old question, like, well, why'd you make that decision? And all of a sudden, there's a deer in the headlights because they don't know why they made the decision. And that's what it's really about. And I think that's why it pushes people to really think. We don't think so much. We get into just a crank it out kind of mode, like you do the same design over and over and over again. Mike, what about you? What was the hardest thing for the process, and what did you actually like about the process?
So to Tim's point, I think the VCAPs, they were fun. I had a lot of fun doing those, and it was good to kind of get in front of the labs and spend some time there. I know it's weird to say that, but
you're a masochist.
I'm kind of a masochist, and I took the beta exams and all that good stuff. But anyway. For me, to Tim's point, asking the why and really being able to hone in on true design skills, meaning aligning IT objectives to business. I think as technologists, we always gravitate towards the how versus the why, right? So to be able to look at business objectives and be able to translate those into technology, I think was the biggest challenge for me. And I learned a ton as a result of that. I mean, I think I became a better technologist, a better design engineer, just as a result of asking the why and adhering to that process.
Mark, what about you? What did you love about it? What did you hate about it? Because we did it early on, so we were all betas aside, we actually were part of the growing pains of it.
So I'll stick with the exams. I'm going to side with Tim. The exams were easy, but I'm not going to go with Michael and say they were fun. They're exams, 4 hours of brutality. Look, one of the things that I found out, again, with the justification, right? How many times have, Tim and I, we've done very similar implementations where you go and look at a customer, we can see 2 racks of servers, and we know instinctively that it's going to be three or four ESXOs with so much storage in the back end. Well, now you have to justify it. I mean, if you really want to simplify it, think of it as, I know I have to go and get my morning coffee at Dunkin' Donuts, right, Jason? And I know it's going to cost.
I'm surprised it's so small.
I know it's going to cost. It's his 4th one.
It's usually, all right. It's usually a big one.
But seriously, just to make a simple analogy, it's, I know I need $2 for my coffee. Why? Because I know every day I go and it costs me $2. It's not the right answer. It's because it's $2 on the price point. And something as simple as that, and, articulating those types of decisions throughout the entire course of the design, from the hardware selection to the way you're planning recovery, to the way you plan disasters, and the strategies around that. You have to actually articulate why you're making those decisions and make sure they do align to business goals.
Jason, what about you?
I'll start with the worst. How about that? Everybody's doing the best, and what do I like out of it?
It was me on your panel.
Yeah, I blocked all that out, but it's gone. To me, I mean, it's a lot of work. I think people underestimate the amount of work that goes into it. Everybody focuses on the defense, right? It's all that documentation, putting together design. I remember when I did mine that, and now, to be honest, I think the documentation requirements are a good bit higher than even when I did mine. But, I took an existing customer design for a good-sized hospital, and I literally did nothing for 9 days straight. I went off, I was not out in the field. I didn't take a single meeting. All I did was sit and bring in that documentation, add things that we didn't normally do that we should have been doing as a partner, helping customers, and putting that together, bundling it all up and throwing it over the wall for VMware to take a look at. And I think that's some of the things that people kind of downplay. I know, Brian, when you were going through yours, it's a ton of work to try to do that and live a life, outside. But to go along with everybody, what they said is it teaches you a lot. To me, it filled in a lot of the small little areas that I didn't always focus on or pay attention to. Now, when I meet with customers, I hit on different areas of topics that before I wouldn't have really thought about going into. And it really helps to flesh out a design, and it really helps you create a much better and much more complete design and architecture.
Brad?
So I think they've all answered really well. So I'm the last one first.
All right, we'll skip you.
I would say probably for me it was interesting because to actually put a comment Chris made before, he was actually my mentor. Because Chris was in the field back when I had done it. Well, no,
You guys want a hug?
we were actually told we had to mentor somebody from VMware.
Okay.
We really do. It's the ball thing.
Now he's a big CTO, and
I'm not a CTO. I'm a senior director.
Oh.
He's the
Office
CTO.
of the CTO. All right.
So basically, for me back then, I think it was really what was really cool that came out of it was honestly the relationships that I actually had built through the VCDX program. And it's not really a challenge or anything else except for I got to know a lot of people that I didn't have the opportunity to know, and some of it was through mentoring, some of it was through the actual defense and stuff like that. But the opportunity to grow, my acquaintances and my friend base was awesome through the VCDX program, and I think it still continues today because with all new VCDXs coming on board, there are people over the years I've gotten to meet through just because they were VCDX.
So I'll give my 2 quick ones. I'll disagree on the exams. I don't do well on an exam. I go into paper lock, just sitting in front of a computer trying to answer questions. That was the worst part for me, was actually doing the VCAPs. The best part for me, the funnest part for me, was actually the defense part. I actually had a blast doing the defense, and people are so afraid of it. But if you're in front of customers all the time and you actually just have conversations all the time, I was told years later, actually, by Frank Denneman, who was on my panel. He just looked at me one day and he's like, I still laugh about your defense, and I'm like, why? He said, because of all the ones I've seen throughout the years, you were the funniest. I said, well, why? And he said, you were leaning on the chair and you were just kind of talking to us, and every time you threw something out, you took all my questions away because you already knew the mistakes you made. You just kind of said, if I did it differently, and my buddy Tommy sitting in the back, I actually used the design that him and I worked on back at a customer down in Alden years ago. But yeah, that's why I actually enjoyed it. You can tell when people come into it and they're not comfortable and they're not comfortable presenting and speaking. The panels have a lot more fun when it's definitely like a conversation. We did that with Jason. I remember we just had a lot of back and forth conversation. It just made it so much more comfortable.
Yeah, the defense is interesting because defense is like Fight Club. The first rule about the defense is you don't talk about what happens in the defenses. So for a first-time person going in, you don't know what to expect. So it's you get very apprehensive about what's going to happen. But once you get in there and realize that it's just an ongoing conversation, you do much better. You relax. You're like, okay, we're just talking essentially and whiteboarding and doing whatever. It makes it much more relaxed if you're ready to do that. If you can't talk in front of people, it's a nightmare.
Sit on the other side of the table and you're trying to ask questions, nobody's answering them.
Yeah. One-word answers.
One word answers, like, okay, where do I go with this one? So we'll do around, not all the way down the line, but we'll pick a couple people. So I'll start with Brad. You know, when you got to think back, if you got the certification, you were like me, you were in the field, you were actually working for a partner. You know, what did it actually, getting the certification, describe the value a little bit to you personally? What was the value to you, and what was actually the value to the partner, or the company that you worked for?
So I think that's a great question. So the value to me was, I think, the ability to walk into customers and have them, I even hate to say it like this, but immediately respect my opinion going into that conversation. It kind of might not sound great, but it was really a thing of they understood the process that maybe they don't know the whole process I went through, but they know that I achieved it, and they thought that, okay, he's coming in, he's got his VCDX, which means he definitely probably knows what he's talking about. And once I described the process to some of my customers at that point, they're like, okay, cool, this will make our job a lot easier, let's just jump into it. And I didn't have to prove myself as hard as I did prior to having the VCDX. The other piece of it to the company was, it was basically a marketing aspect to it, honestly, is that the company benefited because it was like, hey, you know, one of the only VCDXs in the world, and you know, people that knew my last organization I was at, we had one guy that was just a marketing machine, and he was out there, you know, touting it to everybody and telling everybody as much as he could that VCDX, yada yada yada, is going to come in and he can help you do this and that, and I mean, yeah. You know, from a geek perspective, that's not how I would do it. But from a company perspective and a marketing perspective, it did actually bring value to the company as well.
Would you say in competitive situations, was there any competitive difference?
Definitely.
So Mark, let's jump down to you.
So that's why I'm really happy Brad went over to another vendor, because now he and I no longer have to compete up in the Northeast. And that was, you know, I basically have to second everything Brad just said, including having the confidence to walk into a customer once the customers knew that the background between the certification and what was truly involved. It's like a mini doctorate, so a lot of folks look at the stack of paperwork and the documentation, and if Brad's starting to work with someone like that, they knew they were going to get the equivalent kind of treatment, the knowledge, and the insight into not only the tech, but how to consume it, how to really take on that, a change in the way you do business, and make it successful.
Actually, I want to add one thing I think that Mark is kind of getting at, which is part of the VCDX thing for me is not even a validation that you know VMware. I mean, that's kind of a given. It's a validation that you understand the environment that people work in, understanding network and storage and server technology and backup and disaster recovery, that you understand many different pieces of the environment. Whereas it's not just that you know vSphere amazingly well or vCloud Director. That wasn't really the validation you would get out of this. It was the bigger architectural discussion.
So Mike,
Yes.
since Nutanix has 11 VCDXs, yes, so we know, I mean, you guys use it as a marketing machine, right? I mean, you guys tote the number of VCDX you have next to VMware's. So for you, I mean, personally, and both for Nutanix, what has it done?
So personally, it's been great for my career into both Mark and Brad's point. It was a huge validation. You know, when I go into a meeting with a customer and they know I'm a VCDX, and I don't go in there and say, oh, I'm VCDX 84, but usually if I'm with somebody else, they'll mention it. And it makes my job a lot easier, you know, and people, you know,
That's all of us.
we all get that, right? People are like, oh, you're 84, I'm not worthy. It's kind of funny, right? So you can kind of make a mockery and a joke out of the whole thing. But honestly, it really helps me because, again, when you get into a meeting, you're the expert in the room. customers are more apt to open up to you because they know you have that credential, right? In terms of what Brad said about just not necessarily being a VCREP expert, and I'm by far nowhere near the most technical person in this room, I can tell you that right now, but I have a good understanding of how to translate business requirements to technical. I've been doing VMware for a long time, and I have a good understanding of the data center technologies. And really, that's the key, right? So if you have that holistic view of an environment, it's super important. And Nutanix looks at that and says, yeah, these guys are, they've got that industry validation from VMware that they're credible experts in the industry, right? So we certainly value that.
So a couple of us have touched on this, and I'll start with Jason on this one. Folks who know me pretty well, and you guys know this, I talk about personal growth a lot. Everything we do in our lives and our careers is all about growing ourselves as an individual. How going through this process did it actually help you become not only better at what you do, better for your customers, but things that you learned that you said, wow, I never really did that before, I never thought about that myself, or how did it actually help you take your own personal self to another level?
That's a good question. I mean, it's a lot of different things. It's hard to point out one major thing, but over the years since then, it's accelerated a few things. One, just some of the things that I do for customers, some of the marketing we do with our other customers as a partner, and really it also kind of elevated me through what I'm doing as far as social media. There's definitely a select, still there's 186 VCDXs in the world.
186, yeah.
Yes.
Hopefully we'll have some.
Yeah, so I mean, it's still a pretty tight-knit community right now, but it helps give you a lot more exposure. So not just internally in what you're doing today, but a lot of people really take that and leverage it. It's I tell people all the time, would you have loved to been the 200 CCIE in the world? I mean, where would you be, with that kind of a credential later on? And that's kind of one of my original focuses, to kind of try to get in early when I could, and it's still very early. So I think that's the kind of things it did, and it helped me push myself a bit more on the type of work that I did, the scale and the scope. Definitely got me into larger engagements, larger projects, and my success from that with Envero has been substantial since then, and I know it's a pretty significant piece of that.
Just want to kind of interject, because we keep saying...
I was going to go to you next anyway.
No.
It's okay. He's like itching.
No. This is something different. Not to get to your question, I just want to ignore you for a moment. But we as partners are up here and we're talking about our customers, and working on engagements with customers in different projects. If you don't work for a reseller or you don't work for a vendor, you still have customers and you still have projects in your environment. So if you're at a company and you're looking to go ahead and achieve the VCDX, which I know a couple of you guys are, go for it, because you have tons of customers internally that you have to provide the same level of sell that we do, the same level of service and support. And excellence.
That's a great point. I'd love to see more, customer end user type people going through the VCDX program. It was really hard early on for customers to do it because there were some things that you didn't have access to help you with the documentation. You were basically starting with a blank Word template, not help you. But a lot of those things have gotten easier. The mentoring programs, the community support, the study groups, those things didn't exist back, in the older days, but now they do. I would love to see more customer designs and processes through that.
Yeah, it's a good tangent actually, because I think we all work for partners, and when I was a customer, so I was actually an end user before I was ever worked for VMware, ever worked in the partner space. And I think back and I think about designs that we did. I was a data center architect for an end user company, and I had tons of documentation, tons of stuff that I had designed. The challenge, I think, was, if I look back, finding the time to put all that together in the midst of fighting every forest fire and outage and everything else that's happening. But if you relate that to what we do or what these guys did as partners, you still have to balance it. You still have to find the time in the day to break away and go do it. But I actually believe there's a lot of end user customer designs internal that guys did or folks did that are well worthy of going through the process. I think
they just may not know it.
They just don't know it, yeah, because they've never done it. So definitely plug into some of the community stuff. And I actually think the NSX, the VCDX NSX is going to drive a little bit more of that. Because from a networking perspective alone, there's a lot more folks that...
I was going to deciding if I was going to say that. I mean, when we went through that first kind of seed program, a significant number were customers. You know, I worked with a lot of guys, you know, guys from Starbucks or WestJet and any of those that have gone through some of the implementations, and their designs were very good and just as fleshed out as any partner design. And, you know, one thing that I hear from, you know, people, I have customers go like, you know, I'm thinking about going through the process, would you help me out? Absolutely. They're like, but I don't, you know, my environment is not, you know, complex enough to do a design. That's not true. It's not really the size or anything like that. It's how well you're gathering your environments and figuring out what you need to do and your design, your dependencies, and your assumptions. You gather that together. You don't need a 3,000 VM deployment to make a good design out of that. I think that scares a lot of people away when it shouldn't.
Designing for 3 servers is just as challenging as designing for 300 servers. It's just, you're thinking about different components, but you're still having that same critical thought.
Yeah, and if you're not familiar, there's actually, we should have touched on this at the beginning, there's now 4 different tracks. So it's actually expanded from when Jason and myself and Mark and Brad did it, where it was just one track, right? It was VCDX. So there's now focused areas. So if you're a desktop guy, if you do a lot of EDI stuff in your organization, you know, the desktop track might be good for you. There's the networking track now, which is specifically focused on NSX. There's the cloud track, which we won't really talk about, but it's getting a little bit of a revamp in 2015 because it was very, to be honest, it was very VCD focused, it was very vCloud Director focused, and now that's only available to service providers, so it's actually being overhauled by John Hall's team to actually make it more VCAC focused, so that it fits better into what customers need to do. And then there's still the basic, you know, data center virtualization. So I think it opens up, especially on the customer space, it opens up different, because I've met people, I know people in different organizations that they're a desktop guy or they're a networking guy, or so now they'd be way outside of their comfort zone doing the DCD one, right? I mean, what do you think, Brad?
What do you think, Brad?
What do you think, Brad?
I was letting you go.
No, I'm just...
So, I mean, the good thing with the VCDX, all the different tracks right now, is it gives a lot of opportunity to more people. I mean, that really, there are people, some people in the audience I know personally that, you know, were very desktop centric, that you couldn't have achieved the data center one, but you could go after the desktop one. So I think as VMware continues to expand the VCDX program, with more tracks and with driving these tracks to be bigger, I think we're going to help end users be able to get into this program, which is a very big key for this. Because if it's just relying on partners driving VCDX program, that's not going to be able to grow as much as we would like to see it.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's happened over the years, community-wise. We've actually touched on it a little bit when we talk about resources. So back when we were boys, we didn't have like resources. I literally took a design and threw it over, like Jason said, I threw it over the wall. I got an email that said, hey, come and defend it. And I went, okay, cool. I didn't, you know, the only person I think I talked to was Brad. I think we had some one-off conversations. Compared to what we knew then to where it is now, what are some of the best resources out there for people to leverage? You know, we can talk about the mentoring piece, but why don't we start with Tim?
Some of the really good things that are out are the sets, the solution toolkits. There's a lot of reference architectures that are out there that you can take as a starting point for whatever you're doing to give you an idea of exactly where you want to start and get that going. One of the biggest advantages that the candidates have now is they've actually started organizing into study groups and doing defenses and taking turns being both the defender and the panelist within each other's groups. So they're doing these online. You know, the WebExes every night or whatever. It gets them more comfortable with the defense process and being more critical with the other candidates that they're working with. The more critical you are with someone else's design, it allows you to look back at your own and say, I didn't do that either. I need to go figure out why I made that decision because I didn't even think about that. So it helps them prepare for that defense and be more critical of their own designs. That's the number one benefit that I see right now.
So Mike, since you're one of the newer members, did you actually leverage any of that stuff? That half the panel can't say we did because none of it existed.
Yeah, so I think the sets were a big deal for me. You know, leveraging the sets was definitely huge. You know, I actually based my design on the customer design that I did when I was consulting, and also some of the blog sites. So, you know, there's some great resources out there from you know the bloggers who are VCDXs, right? So leverage those for sure. And people in the VCDX community in general are very right. So what I found is I reached out to somebody, sent an email, whatever. I would get a response back. You know, I've reviewed designs for people, so you know anybody who's kind of in the VCDX directory typically will be helpful and be able to review documentation that you might put together and provide some feedback. Right? Typically helpful, right, for the most part. So
I've never heard a story where someone asked for help and you didn't get it.
yeah, and we're here to help. I mean, we've been through the process. We know what it's like. And you guys don't need to go alone. That's the biggest advice I can give you.
Yeah, and we actually, late last year, Jason's part of this, we started an advisory council and we put some new stuff together to help people in the community. We actually launched a mentoring program that is actually community driven. So people have actually volunteered. If you actually go out to the VMTN forums, we put a post up there, and it was just like you said. We asked for volunteers. We put up a sign up sheet on Google Docs, and 14, 15 people in the community that are VCDX has signed up to be mentors. Which means you can go to that list, pull their Twitter handle, their email address, their phone number, because they've published that, and actually call them up and say, I got a design. I'm an end user. I think it's 90% there, 80% there. Can I get a little bit of help? And they've taken on that responsibility, which I think is huge, because you really need to ask people for help in some of this. And I look back and I wonder what would have been different about mine if I had people to talk to. So I think those are great resources, and I think the study groups. I'm doing a V Brown Bag for MIA next week or the week after. So I think there's a huge number of V Brown Bag stuff that's been recorded. So leverage whatever you can. So as we're on that topic, and I'll go to Jason since he's on the advisory board. But what are some of the things that'd be nice? We talk about futures. What would you like to see out of the program? How would you like to see it evolve? Things to make it kind of move forward since where it's at today.
That's a good question. I mean, we've talked a lot about that. I think a few things are a little bit of, I love the fact that you're branching out into different competencies. I think that's really important. I'd like to see that continue on, kept updated. I think you're going to continue to see community sponsorship and support. It is nice now to be able to go through that and your first defense not be walking through two glass doors and VMware headquarters, not know what you're going to do. So I think that is very important. And really the next thing is, in my opinion, and one of the reasons we wanted to start the council was to get feedback, both from existing VCDXs as well as people going through the process of what is and isn't working. Because it's how do you launch a new certification track? How do you do the tests? How do you do renewals? There's still some things that are kind of gelling on that right now, and I think that's what we'll see going forward. But the feedback from people going through the process is every bit as important as the old guys like us who went through it, years ago. And it's like, well, when we did it, we didn't have any of this stuff. Well, yeah, but things have changed. So I'd love to get that kind of feedback. The council wants to hear it. If you're looking at something thinking, man, this is kind of crazy, or I'm unsure about this, please do let us know.
Mike, again, being one of the folks who's fresh gone through it, is there something looking back that you'd like to see, added to it? Or, I mean, we've got ideas we can't really talk about yet for 2015 that we're bouncing around, but anything coming to mind?
I think again, from VMware as a whole, for VMware really put some emphasis and focus on it, and maybe have some more formalized trainings or sessions or programs that are really help to prepare for it. I think community support is great, but again, to be able to present in front of VMware directly as part of your preparation, I think would be key.
Yeah, I will touch on one thing. We get requests a lot from people. Jason, I think, is the only one up here that's got two VCDXs. He's got his DCD and NSX. We've actually got a lot of requests from people to streamline that process. Okay, so I've got one. I want to go for a second one, but how do I do it? do I have to redefend again? Is it just a submission? What's the review process like? So we're actually looking at that right now to try to not make it easier to get doubles, but make it smoother for somebody to actually go beyond just the single, right? I'm actually going to be talking about that at PEC, so if there are partners that are here, they're going to partner exchange. I actually added some new stuff into the boot camp deck to talk about the future of the doubles process. So any other, we want to open it up for any questions from folks that are taking notes or want to actually just ask questions of the panel, but any other final thoughts on your journey through this process?
It's short, I promise. There's one thing I think that's not covered a lot. People talk about the VCDX process, and that's actually not the technical side of it. It's more of the consultative psychological side of going through it, which I haven't seen maybe as much help for people out there in the fact of going through this process is actually mentally probably one of the harder things you think about dealing with. And defending is probably the biggest part. People up here make jokes like, the test isn't that hard, or we have nerves for that, but I think the defense, going into that, it's such an unknown that it is, that unto itself is actually a test for a lot of people, is to be able to walk into that room, stand in front of 3 people that typically you respect and don't probably know from online or Twitter or wherever it is, and be able to then, prove yourself in front of them, not even technically, but to be able to stand behind your opinions and what you know in your head is actually probably my feeling one of the hardest parts of going through the process. And I think it's really a testament to how the partner community at least deals with their customer base and how the end users deal with people inside of their companies. Because one of the things that's kind of weird for me now that I'm on the other side, I'm not in the partner community anymore. I'm now on the vendor side, and I'm not even in the field, I'm internally from an engineering CTO office perspective. I still use a lot of the same skills that I use going through the VCDX program internal at EMC. I still have to deal with people in that same way of consultative, opinionated, driving it through fact type of mentality. So it's something that I believe is a major thing to come out of the VCDX program is that psychological mental toughness and consultative capability.
Yeah, and I talked to somebody, I think it was in Charlotte or Atlanta last year, and they brought up something about how it prompted a blog article that I put up that said, don't have fear of the panelists. Like everybody walks in, they're like, oh, but what if Mustafa's on my panel? What if Jason's on my panel? What if Duncan's on my panel? And at the end of the day, right, I mean, the thing I stress to people is if you get to that level, if you are invited to defend, I can guarantee on film that the people on the other side of the table, the panelists, have a great deal of respect for you walking through that door because they went through the same process, right? So there's one thing about being confident and walking through the door, and I can honestly say Jason was probably the most confident guy walking through the door in any panel we had.
I never hear that, that's odd.
He walked in like, I am the Jason Nash, because you know who I am. But it wasn't that, I didn't know you at the time, we didn't know each other, and when I went into mine, I didn't know who, Frank and Duncan were both on my panel. I was like, who are these guys? It's just another group of peers that I've talked to. But if you think about it, that they have a good deal of respect because they're there to question you. They're there to ask you about your design. They're not there to make you fail. They're actually there to help. They're there to help you move forward. They're actually there to help your thought process change a little bit.
That's what I was going to say. The panel is there to help you pass. The panel is not your enemy. The panel is your friend. Time, the clock is your enemy. So they're trying to move you through the process. They're trying to go through your design. And they're there to pull information out of you to understand why you did something, why you didn't do something, why maybe there's a piece that's not in the design, and they want to know that. So don't look at the panel as being cross-examined by the DA, right? Look at the panel as, as somebody who's asking, all right, well, what were you thinking there? It's some people I think get flustered at pointed questions and open-ended, these types of questions. Like, man, they were really hitting me on that. Why would they do that? Well, they're doing that to try to understand your thought process behind it. So they are your friends, not your enemies.
I'll say one thing, that going through the process makes you a better prepared presenter and makes you more well-rounded in whatever you're doing. And the preparation you put and the pressure cooker of you have to know all this stuff and work through it. Because there is no meeting you will go in after that, whether it's a CTO, CFO, CIO, whatever. Those are nothing compared to what you've prepared yourself for the defense. After that, I can talk to anybody.
Here, great point.
Yeah, and actually, I've heard that from a lot of people. Like, I just don't care who's in the room now. When I walk in, it's like, yeah, there's another guy who puts his pants on one leg at a time, and I got some stuff I got to talk to him about. It's no big deal. They get through that process, and it's like the weight of the world comes off people's shoulders. It does. I think that's what my question about how growing as a person. Like that's where you grow as an individual. But yeah, it's really a lot of misnomers that the panel is there to hammer you and make you fail. They're really not. But I'll tell you, if you go down a path that's the wrong path, they aren't necessarily going to help you pull yourself out of that hole. They may throw you curveballs to see if you're going to go further down the hole, or if you're going to be able to understand what's happening. Like, do you understand that that if they ask you the same question a few times, it's not for no reason. They're trying to make sure that you're either going to come back out of it, or it's like getting into a tailspin, right?
If you go down the rabbit hole, they'll give you the shovel if you want.
Oh yeah. That's the thing is, if you want to open that can of worms, or you want to talk about something that you think you know really well, but you don't know who's on the panel and they know it 10 times better than you do. You don't. The last thing you want to do, I think, is BS anybody on the panel. So we just given us the 5 minutes to go. I did want to open it up. We got the walk around mics for give folks an opportunity to ask some questions if they're curious about going through the process themselves. We can pass the mic around. We'll repeat the questions if we have to. Somebody's got to be shy. You can't be shy if you want to go through the process. Let's put it that way.
This is the form. Get over there.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that you said, after everybody else said, after everybody else said the VCAPs are easy, I'm really glad that you said that you could have done it, because I'm having that issue with VCAPs.
I hate standardized testing.
And so kudos to you, gentlemen, for being able to breeze through those.
I'm aware, dude. So.
Well, so I did the DCD. That actually was the DCD, which is precursor to the VCDX, because that's far more design than the DCA was.
Right.
Any kind of help for that first step up to the DC. I mean, I do want to go for the VCDX once I get my DC. Any kind of advice for that first step?
So just repeat the question. The general advice for the VCD exam for the folks who actually enjoy taking those kinds of things.
Right, exactly.
I'll give you what I just told one of my engineers last night. You can't study for the DCD. So you go take it, you get a rough guess of how you did it.
Take it again.
And then you take it again. And I swear that is the answer to that question. And somebody may have ruled, but the last time I took the DCD, I went through every suggested document that they told you to do.
Yep.
None of it was on that exam. And sometimes those things are just tough. I mean, I'll be honest right here on camera. I took the VCP&V the other day. I'm a VCDX and V. I'm doing the pull side course. I didn't pass by as much as I would have liked to, because some of it is those exams are just worded weird. They're odd. They try to use a niche case. And then you got people like me that are just simply ADD. I can't sit there and take a 120 question exam. By the time I feel like I've got a 301 out of 500, I'm just like C and B and let's just go. But that's a tough one. That's one that bites a lot of people. I don't have a great answer for that.
The design tool is not the best. That's my opinion. So typically go through the designs first. That's my recommendation, and then kind of go back and do the radio questions.
What were the sets that you guys were talking about?
Oh, the sets? Yeah.
What was the question?
What are the sets that you mentioned?
Solution enablement toolkits. Those are available on the VMware partner website. So basically, they're going to be your design guides.
If you're not a partner, you're technically not supposed to have access to those.
You're technically not supposed to have access to those.
Technically, you're not supposed to get those.
Thank you.
But you might know a guy who knows a guy who's.
But honestly, I don't see
school.
how anybody does this without access to those.
Yeah, exactly.
And there is actually, we did post there's two examples. There's a cloud example and there's a DCD example on the education site now. We actually posted those, and we are looking to do some more. They are not templates, but they're just as examples for you to look at and say, okay, this is the direction I can go.
Yeah, in the sense, just be careful. They're not there to hinge yourself on, to crunch. They're there to get you in the right direction. So a lot of people use them and then get into, it's because it was in the set. As far as the process.
Yeah, the minute you start treating anything as a template, you're not going to go well.
The best is to take the set and then customize each section and bring that into your own document. So just let it exist.
So yeah, use it as a starting point, but always think simplicity when you're doing your design too. Don't overcomplicate it. That's another piece of advice I can give you. If you're trying to overcomplicate your design, you're not going to be able to answer all the whys, and you're not going to do a good job in your defense.
Yeah, we talk about that in the boot camps. Like, a good design doesn't have to, and I think Jason says this all the time, it doesn't have to be complicated. It has to answer the business case. It has to answer the risks and the assumptions. And I think when I did mine, Tommy will vouch for this one, we had some really stupid decisions. And I know after talking to Frank, a couple years later, he's like, I had all these questions about these decisions, but you came in and you said we did them because this is what some guy said was a requirement, and we had to make that decision. Our hands were tied in a lot of cases. It's okay if that's the answer in the defense, that was the requirement, and this is why it was a requirement, because we had X, Y, and Z other things behind it that were dependencies. Question justified, or decision justified. So you might get some weird questions. I actually like seeing designs. I think yours had some really funky things in there, and it actually made for really good conversation because it wasn't your cookie cutter like sphere design, but it wasn't complicated. It was just interesting.
Only implement technology that actually meets the requirement. Just because you can doesn't ever mean you should.
Jason, I was going to ask, you wrote an interesting blog post after your defense. Could you talk about in general the panel? What do you feel like after the defense?
So I wrote a blog post during my defense, during the ad hoc I just created, right? I thought I did a great job on the defense. I felt really good. It was great. Came back at the ad hoc, and I was like, well, thanks guys. I really appreciate your time. It's fantastic. So I wrote a blog post when I left. I think the title was, how I went to San Francisco and choked. And I actually had one of my sales reps call me up and say, take that blog post down. And I was like, well, why? And they're like, because
Is it still up?
Yeah. And they said, well, it makes us look bad. I said, look, first of all, no. And second of all, a lot of people talk about when they come out and they pass. They're like, yay, I passed. But you didn't used to hear from a lot of people that did not pass. And I thought it was important, that people come out of there stressed and they're feeling bad. I luckily ended up passing, but when I left there, I was not in a good place. My wife came out that week for San Francisco, and we were doing it. It was back when you defended the week before VMware.
What he doesn't know is all of us on the panel are like, man, that guy was good.
It was terrible.
You were.
I've rarely talked to people who walked out of that defense feeling like, I got this, man.
I was the same way. I walked out and I was just depressed. I was like, okay.
Oh yeah, by the way, you and I walked out of the room like literally like 5 minutes after each other. Looked at each other, I'm like, Brad, how'd it go? He goes, I don't know, I need a drink. I said, yeah, it's noon somewhere, let's go.
But the worst thing is back then, and this was a long time ago, they didn't give us the results for. I mean, it was probably
It was way more than 10 days.
It was like
10
a
days.
month they didn't get the results.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there like, okay, I definitely failed because they're not telling me.
I waited 3 months.
3
You
months.
get your results now in 10 days. All right, we're getting the wrapping up from Luigi. Give him a job. That's what happens. Well, I'm going to be around all day. These guys will be around all day. If you have questions, hit us up on Twitter. Check out the list of mentors that's out there. And yeah, definitely let us know.
Thank you guys.